What we're going to do today to start is we're going to record what I would call a basic screen recording video with Camtasia. That's also going to include me on webcam as well as my spoken voice. Now, before I set this video up, I want to tell you what we're going to do. We are going to record how to find our webinars off the TechSmith webpage. So we're going to find the webinar page. We're going to walk through the page for a quick second or two, and then we're going to stop that video. That's the entirety of the video we're going to make today, and then we'll use that video to do any kind of editing and enhancements to it later on. So just to be clear, the goal of the recording of the video is to show people where to find the webinar page, how to navigate it, and points of interest on the page. That being said, I'm going to pull up the screen that I'm going to record, which happens to be this web page, and I am going to pull up the Camtasia welcome window because we're going to start with a recording. I don't have a project open at all. I don't have the editor open as of yet. We're going to start from the welcome window, which, geez, I think better than 95% of my projects start right here with this recording button because I'm kind of a guy who hits record and goes. So when I hit record, it is going to launch the Camtasia recorder, and I'm going to bring that up over here onto this screen. And whenever we start recording with Camtasia, we want to ask ourselves a few simple questions, and that corresponds with sections of the recorder. One is, what do I want people to be able to see? Do I want them to see me? Can they hear me? And is there any sound that's coming out of my computer besides my voice that I want captured? And we're just going to walk through each of those questions. So first, what do I want people to be able to see? Well, I want them to be able to see this entire web page. And right now I have a region selection on my screen, which means it's not the entire page. So we're going to use the drop-down menu and choose what is screen 2 on my computer. I have a 2-monitor setup. So I'm going to select screen 2, and it is going to take this green dotted line that you might have seen, and it's going to encompass the entirety of screen number 2. So I can see that preview here of exactly what I want recorded inside of Camtasia. So it's going to capture screen number 2. So question 1, what do I want people to be able to see? That's taken care of. I'm going to turn off my webcam here inside of Zoom because I want people to be able to see me. That's the second question. So I'm going to toggle on my webcam, and Camtasia is going to find my webcam. I actually have a couple of them plugged into my computer. I've got this one, this really nice DSLR camera, but with this drop-down menu, I can see my other options as well. I have a Logitech Brio on the top of my monitor, but I really love the way that this DSLR camera looks. So this is the webcam that I'm going to choose when I'm recording this video. So I've got, what do I want people to see? Can they see me? And then the third part is, can they hear me? This is where I can choose to check into Camtasia to make sure that not only is Camtasia picking up my voice, but I'm using the microphone that I want. Now I'm privileged a little bit. I have multiple webcams as well as multiple microphones. So we saw the multiple webcams underneath that drop-down menu. We also have multiple microphones. I've got everything from my really nice microphone that's sitting just off screen here on a little boom arm that I use for, oh, I bet you 100% of my recordings. I've got my Bluetooth headset as well as the built-in one to that other webcam. So I just want to make sure that the correct microphone is chosen and that Camtasia is hearing it, which I can tell because the audio meter is jumping up and down. You see this green line here on the recorder that if I get a little closer, it gets louder, or if I move the mic farther away, it adjusts based on the sensitivity as to where the microphone is. Quick tip, if you're using some sort of microphone, we recommend some sort of USB-based microphone. It doesn't have to be a $500 one. It could be a $10 one, a $15 one. Any USB-based microphone is going to be a superior quality to the one that's built into your computer, especially if you have a laptop. That being said, if the only microphone you have available to you is the one that's built into your laptop, do not let that stop you from making a video. Use what you have available to you, and then over time, you can possibly upgrade different parts of your recording process. If you're using a USB style mic, I always use what I call the hang loose method, which is to stretch your thumb and your pinky as far as away as they can be and have your mic about that distance from your mouth and talk at a normal voice volume, which I'm doing right now. So we answered those 3 questions. The fourth question is there any sounds that are coming out of my computer? This is called system audio, and Camtasia, along with everything else that it captures, can also capture that. This would be if I have sound effects coming through my computer, if I have an error message that I want brought into my recording. Most of my recordings don't have any sound with them aside from my spoken word or anything I add later on. So I typically leave this toggled off. Now, with brand new versions of Camtasia 2021, when you hit the record button on the recorder here, something's going to happen. The recorder itself is going to minimize, and it's going to be replaced with a in-product recorder bar. It's going to have a start button, a pause button, a resume button. It's also going to show your audio meter as well as a preview of your webcam. And you're going to see it sitting right there on your screen. One thing to note is that recording toolbar that you're going to see after you hit the record button is visible to you, but it's not going to be captured in your recording. It's actually going to be masked as long as you have, I'm on a Windows computer here today, as long as you have the newest updates to the Windows operating system. It doesn't have to be Windows 11 yet. It's an updated version of Windows 10. It will mask that. That being said, if you're working on a single monitor setup, you can also have it just minimized down to your system tray, so it'll be out of the way as well. Or if you're on a multi-monitor setup, you can literally click and drag that recorder off the screen to the other monitor, whatever is most comfortable for you. There's also a series of keyboard shortcuts that you can start, resume, and stop your recording. We can get into all that if people have questions about it later on. All right, I think we're ready to record. So once again, we're going to show how to find the webinars page on the TechSmith webpage. And we're going to do a quick walk around it, and we're going to use that recording to talk about the editing magic inside of Camtasia. So I'm going to hit the red record button. It's going to give me a 3, 2, 1 countdown. And then I'm going to do my recording. Anything I say and anything I do on the screen after that 3, 2, 1 countdown is going to be captured by Camtasia. So here we go. I'm going to move it over here off the screen. I'm going to hit the record button, and here we go. Hi, everybody. This is Jason with TechSmith. I'd like to show you where you can find our webinar offerings right on TechSmith.com. First, in your favorite web browser, go to TechSmith.com, and at the top of the page, locate the support menu, and then choose the webinar tab. Here you'll be brought to the TechSmith webinar and digital event schedule, which is going to show you all the upcoming webinars that are covered by Snagit, Camtasia, the Getting Started series, and even deeper dives into various topics that you might be interested in regarding our products. If you've signed up for a webinar and couldn't attend, we always send you a recording, but maybe you haven't signed up for any of the webinars and you still want to watch a recording, that's okay. Because along with posting them to the YouTube channel for TechSmith, we also have this button here that says View Previous Recordings. And when you click on that, you can actually see the most recent webinars that we've done, including this one is the Make Videos Faster, our 10 Tools for Better Screenshots, and Easily Editing Audio, along with a whole series of other ones as they load as the page goes further down. Back on that primary webinar page, you also have access to both our French and German webinars, if that's your flavor of language. I hope you found this so useful, and thanks so much for watching. All right, so at this point, I hit the stop button on my recorder, which I had on my other screen, and it is going to launch the Camtasia Editor, and inside that editor is going to be our recording. So when that pops up, we'll bring that up onto our screen. And before we do anything at all, I always encourage people at this point to save their project because it starts off as an untitled project here inside of Camtasia. My best practice from this point is to save it, which is as easy as going to File and Save. And then for today, we'll just save it on my desktop and we'll call this Find Our Webinars. And one thing I do want to note, if you're still new to Camtasia and the newest version of Camtasia, there is a box down here that's checked by default that says Create Standalone Project. What that's going to do is create its own folder, a TSC Proj folder that's going to store everything from this recording inside of it. So anything we add to Camtasia later on, if we bring in music or images or other recordings, it'll all be kept together in that same location. All right, so we've got our video. When it comes into Camtasia for the very first time, you've got 2 tracks here. You've got your screen recording, and you've got your webcam as well as the audio that's baked in. You are set up down here as a picture-in-picture in the lower right-hand corner. And if we play this back, let's just play it back for a couple seconds here. Ryan, we want to double check that you are hearing this. Here we go. Hi, everybody. This is Jason with TechSmith. I'd like to show you where you can find our webinar offerings right on TechSmith.com. First, in your favorite web browser, go to TechSmith.com. And at the top, all right, so just wanted to double check, Ryan, that you are in fact hearing that audio coming from that video.
Yes, I am, and this might be a good time to mention attendees might
Yep.
be seeing a bit of a playback difference, and I'll let you explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reminding me. So when you're playing back video in a video editor, like we are here with Camtasia, over a webinar software like Zoom, it may not give the most crisp response, meaning it might look like there's frames dropping or that things are out of sync. Rest assured, they're not. That's the behavior of high quality video going through a webinar piece of software. When you get the recording, it'll be smooth as silk, or when you make your own, it'll be good to go as well. Now, inside the editor here, we've got the recording, reminding ourselves that the original goal of this video was to show people where the webinars are on our webpage, then also showing them navigating a little bit around and finding things that might be of interest to them. This is where I'm going to shake things up for you. I'm going to put a poll question out into the world here. And this poll question is going to have to do with exactly what we've done so far, which is recording. And that question for you, and this is interactive, so go ahead and click on the screen for which option most represents your position. And that is, would you share this video as is? Meaning we haven't touched it. Would you send it out right now? Would you like to edit it a little bit more? Or I don't know, what else can we do? And I'll give everybody a second or two to respond to that. Just kind of curious to see what comfort level people have with recording their video. All right, so we're gonna give it one more second here. We've got about 250 people in our webinar today and about 200 of you answered. So let's go ahead and end it and share those results. So it looks like 5% of you are totally fine with, hey, let's ship it. It's done. It met its goals. It was really ready, exactly what I wanted, and we'll send it out into the world. No, I'd like to edit it a little bit more. 60% of you said, no, let's go a little bit further. And 35% said, well, I'm not quite sure. What else can we do? That is awesome. And we appreciate that response. So if you ever got to the point where you needed to make a quick, or what I call a down and dirty video, where you just need to get it out, maybe you know that the audience is a coworker or someone you have a good relationship with, you can just send the video. Know that you can do that with Camtasia. You don't have to do all the editing. In fact, you don't have to do any if you don't want. So based on that, Ryan, I think we should take this to the next level, and we'll do some recording edits to our webcam. But before I do that real quick, is there any questions that have come in about any of our process so far?
So a couple questions. First of all, this is kind of lead you into your next section though, but do you have to record with webcam?
No,
first question.
Yeah, that's a great question. No, you don't. You don't have to record with webcam. It's not a requirement. You can actually, if I pull up the recorder again, you'll see that there is the ability to toggle it on and off. So see this little toggle switch below the screen or below the webcam or below the mic. You can toggle those off at any time and they won't be captured. The reason I encourage people to record their webcam, even if they think they might not use it later, is because it's easier to have it and not use it than wish you had it and never have recorded it in the beginning. You can always hide it. You can always delete it. You can always separate your audio and video and go without the webcam. Totally up to you. You have that flexibility here within the editor.
Perfect. And another question that I've seen popping in here is, and you'll probably talk about this a little bit more on the tracks, the webcam and the audio look like they're together. Can you talk a little bit about, do they have to stay together? Can you separate them? Can you kind of show that process?
Yep. So when you record with Camtasia using a webcam and the spoken audio are going to be merged together into one track. I typically leave them together myself, especially if I'm going to leave my webcam on the screen, because I want the voice and the camera to stay in sync. If I separate those, which you can do by right-clicking on that track and choosing separate audio and video, you can definitely separate them, especially if you need to do a pickup or re-record a certain section. But if you separate them and you shift them one way or the other on the screen on your timeline, there is a chance you can get them out of sync. And I just avoid that challenge by not separating them. But you definitely can do it. And if you're going to have your webcam on the screen for just a little while and then pull it off, there's a lot of flexibility there as well. Good question.
Awesome. So I think last one is going to lead you right into it. People are saying, can I make my webcam a little bit bigger? So I'll let you take it from there.
You absolutely can. And let's totally do that right now. In fact, that's the next thing we were going to do. So as you noticed, when we start up the recording, inside the editor, you have two tracks. You have your screen recording and you've got the webcam, and they are two independent pieces of media. And because they're independent, they can be adjusted independently, such as if I click and grab my webcam, I can then move it and manipulate it, and maybe move it to the upper left-hand corner and even resize it. Boy, is that just a great picture of me. Wow. Anyway, so you can manipulate those pieces individually. As a matter of fact, behind my webcam is still that screen recording, and I don't need it for a while. In fact, let's play this back for just a second to find out at what point I actually start referencing the screen. Hi, everybody. This is Jason with TechSmith. I'd like to show you where you can find our webinar offerings right on TechSmith.com. Okay, so at this point in the recording is when I'm going to start referencing the screen. So I'm actually going to trim out that whole first section so that when I bring my playhead back, behind me is actually nothing. And there's a reason I'm going to do that. So it allows me to fade things out. It allows me to bring in some animation and some transitions to my webcam. So let's start with the first thing I would do is I'd pick a transition that I really, really like to add to my webcam. Now, we just added, I think it's over 75 brand new transitions here inside of Camtasia. But I have a few of my favorites that I've actually, when you hover over a transition and you find one that you really like, instead of always constantly scrolling through or using the drop-down menu at the top to find the different types, you can choose one that you really, really like, or multiple ones that you like, and click on the star in the upper right-hand corner to make it a favorite. And when you do that, it adds it to this favorites menu. So here I have one. I have actually 5 that I like a lot. I'm going to use this cascading squares ones. I've really kind of fallen in love with this one over time. I'm going to click and drag that down onto my webcam. And if I drag it to the middle, it applies both a fade in or transition in and a transition out. So I drag it to the middle and let go. That new transition of cascading squares is now added to my video so that when I bring my playhead back and I play it forward, it transitions in and allows me to have that cool polish to my video. So that's the first thing that I would do. The second thing I'm going to do is I want to add a little bit more character to my webcam. And there's a couple ways you can do it. The ways that I'm going to show you are capable within the newest versions of Camtasia. And that is, the first thing I'm going to do is bring my webcam playhead here to where I'm starting to talk about TechSmith.com. I'm starting to talk about the website. So I'm going to add an animation here. We'll go into our animations tab at the top, and I'm going to add a custom animation. When you add a custom animation, you drag it down here onto your timeline. Let's zoom in a little bit for detail. It comes in as this arrow, and animations in Camtasia work like this. When the playhead hits the tail, the animation starts, and then it happens throughout the duration of the time of the arrows on the screen. And then when it hits the head of the arrow, the animation completes. So you can change its duration, making it slower by making it longer, or shorter to make it faster. So what I'm going to do here is double click on the playhead at the end of the arrow, and I'm going to manipulate my webcam. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to resize it down into the corner, as well as I'm going to crop it by using the crop tool at the top. So I'm going to actually manipulate the actual size of the webcam. Let's move it a little bit more. Then I'm going to add a couple more things. So I'm stacking a few things here together, Ryan. I'm going to go over to the visual effects tab, and I'm going to choose something new in Camtasia called corner rounding. And when I click and drag that onto my timeline here, it allows me to change the corners of my webcam. And that's why I cropped it, so that I could crop it into kind of a punch out or a circle looking. I also like when we take one of the corners away and create this little teardrop. In fact, maybe I'll just leave it as a teardrop here right now so that it gives it a little bit more personality. And I'm also going to add motion blur. So motion blur does this. When I animate my webcam down into the corner, it kind of looks pretty static, right? It just looks like it's moving there. It's not very thrilling to me, right? So we added something called motion blur. And if I click and drag motion blur onto my webcam, now all of a sudden it has some character. It's got some motion to it. It blurs it out as it's moving, and it actually gives it a sense of motion as it comes all the way through. So I find that to be pretty cool in terms of the video. Now, there's a couple of things that I do want to do while while this is happening, and that is, I'm going to actually add that rounding back in. One of the effects that I added was that corner rounding. And if I bring my webcam back to full screen, you'll actually notice down in the corners, there's a little bit of that corner rounding. So that black is kind of bleeding through. It's not terrible, but it's not my favorite. I want it to be a little bit more polished. So we're going to use the effects tray, which is this little up arrow that's added to your track when you add different effects like motion blur or corner rounding. And I can actually adjust when that corner rounding starts, and I'm going to have it start right at the point of the animation that starts. So we'll line it up here. So now if we play this video back, we'll have a little bit different effect. Ryan, I'm going to play it back, and of course, reminding everybody that it may not look as smooth as you'd like it to over webinar, but I assure it's crisp and clean here on my end. So let's play this back here for just a second to show you where you can find our webinar offerings right on TechSmith.com. First, in your favorite web browser, go to TechSmith.com. So I noticed right away that when my animation started, the screen recording just kind of popped up on there, and that's not the way I want it. So all I need to do is go to a transition. I'll probably pick something very basic like a fade, and we'll add a fade in transition to my screen recording. So now when my webcam moves, the screen fades into place. Just gives it a little bit more polish. In fact, I might even move it out a little bit more so that it starts happening right when my webcam moves, so that it's nice and clean. There we go. Now there's a couple more things, Ryan, I could do. I mean, with the webcam, I can kind of go nuts. Maybe I don't want it to go just into that static area in the corner. Maybe I want it to have a little bit more personality to it. Maybe I want to tilt it on its y-axis here, and I can move that, adjust the numbers here, maybe tilt it a little bit to the left. Or maybe I want to add something like, oh, I don't know, let's go to our visual effects and add a drop shadow to give it even more depth. And if I add the drop shadow here, I can change its offset. In fact, I could even change its color if I wanted to. If I wanted to grab my Camtasia colors here, I can do that as well. There's so much flexibility I have, and I think I don't want it negative. I think I want, I think I want it, I want it tilted as a negative 18.2. There we go. A little bit more the way I wanted it, tilted the right way. And of course, with Camtasia, I can toggle off. If I didn't want the corner rounding, if I played around with it and it wasn't exactly what I wanted, I can toggle it off to see what it looks like cropped. Or if I didn't want that drop shadow, I can toggle those off as well. But I can make a little bit more of a dynamic video. Now, the video would play per normal. I've adjusted the webcam. And then here at the end, I say something like, I hope you found this useful. So let's play this back. It's your flavor of language. I hope you found this so useful, and thanks so much for watching. So I hope you found this useful. So at that point, I would probably want to come back to full screen. So I'm going to grab an animation, a custom one again, and drag it down here onto my timeline. And then here's a super pro tip. I want my webcam to look exactly like it did right here. So I don't want to have to undo all this work. And with Camtasia, I actually don't have to. So with my playhead before my animation, I can right click and choose copy properties. And then I can place my playhead after that animation and right click and choose paste properties. And it'll affect my webcam the way it was before. I can actually then go back into my system tray and take off that corner rounding if I wanted to. And now the video will play back at the end like this. On our webinar page, you also have access to both our French and German webinars, if that's your flavor of language. I hope you found this so useful, and thanks so much for watching. And of course, I'd probably put a little bit more polish on the, I wouldn't have the corner rounding drop maybe till the end, or I don't know. I could definitely, this is where I could spend a lot of time with this. So Ryan, we've done some editing to just the webcam. We've actually added a little bit more dynamicness to our video. We were able to use basic tools that are already inside of Camtasia for that purpose. So let's put another poll question out to our audience and find out if, in fact, would you share this video with these new changes with just the webcam, right? Are you ready to send it out now? All of a sudden, it's a little bit more dynamic. Or once again, you'd like to edit a little bit more, or you know what? I'm not quite sure. Let's see what else we can do. For me, this is a heck of a lot of edits. In fact, this is a way that most people would impress their end users or the people receiving their video. They'd be immediately like, how did you do that? I think it's super professional, nice and crisp and clean. So we'll give everybody just a couple seconds to respond. Our same number of participants are in, so we'll give everybody a second. We've got about 172 responses. We'll go 5 more seconds here. All right. So we'll end the poll and we'll share the results. So yes, send it out. Ryan has jumped from that 5% up to 22%. 40 people said, you know what, this is great. Let's go. Let's get it out into the world. People need to know how to find the webinars. Versus 37% are like, you know what, I'd like to edit a little bit more. Let's go a little bit deeper. And then 41% said, you know what, I don't know. What else can we do? Because maybe we've teased out a few more things that are possible. And I'm good with that. Let's actually do a little bit more edits. But before I go into anything further, Ryan, let's go to you and the team to see if there's any questions that have come in regarding anything we've covered so far up to this point, to see if there's anything we can clarify.
Just one thing to reiterate here. You added one animation at the beginning.
Yes.
But you added multiple effects to that animation, right? You don't have to you don't have to do a one animation per effect. You can add multiple things to it.
Yeah. So I could have done that, right? I could have just moved the webcam to the corner and then added an animation for cropping and then one for the shadow and then one for the rounding. The power of Camtasia is these are called keyframes. That's a fancy movie making term, right? So it's basically saying at the beginning that Camtasia, this is how it looks now. I want it to look like this after this transition happens, after this animation. So all I did was tell Camtasia, make it a little smaller, add some motion blur, round those corners, and even add a drop shadow to give it a little bit more depth. So it was all built into that one animation arrow. And then at the end, I asked Camtasia to basically undo them all. Start with where we are, and then as this animation happens, remove all of those from its end state. I still want to clean that up, but I won't do it right now.
Resist.
I know. So yeah, that's true. One animation covered a lot of ground.
Perfect. Susan just asked a great question. Does it save after every change that you're doing? Can you talk a little bit about the saving process? The autosave feature?
Sure. Yep. So we saved the project at the beginning, and I do that for a couple reasons. One, because I want to name it, so I know what the project is later. But Camtasia does have an autosave feature built in. As a matter of fact, if we go to the Edit menu and go to Preferences, there is right here under the Program tab an autosave, and it's enabled by default, and it's enabled to autosave every minute. Meaning, if for some reason Camtasia or my computer crash or I lost power, who knows what could happen in this world, right? At the most, I would have lost 1 minute worth of work back, 1 minute back. So every time I make a change, it doesn't automatically save it. You could be in the habit of doing your Control S, but know that Camtasia is auto-saving every minute so that if something catastrophic happens, you will only lose, it sounds terrible to lose anything, but you would lose 1 minute worth of work or some range within that minute. It's helpful. It's happened. We've had power outages with storms and stuff like that. And I've been in the middle of big edits and been like, oh no, but mainly I lost a subtle adjustment or a color change. And frankly, it's the worst thing that happened. I can make a quick change back. No problem.
Yep. All right. One more question. I think this one's pretty relevant right now. Joel had asked, can this level of editing be done from like a Zoom recording? Like the webcam that you're manipulating, if they brought in a Zoom recording with webcams in it, can they do that kind of same thing with the webcams?
So you certainly can bring in the recording from Zoom, right? You would be in your media bin and you would do it by either hitting Control-I to import or by using this plus button down here to locate it where it's saved on your computer. The webcams inside of Zoom are baked in, meaning they're part of that full recording. So you can't extract the webcams out and do the sort of manipulation we're doing. The manipulation and the editing that I'm showing is based on recording with Camtasia itself. We cannot strip out parts of Zoom. Now, that being said, you still could do some of the edits we're going to do to our screen recording here in a second, but you wouldn't be able to manipulate the webcams themselves. They'd have to be their own pieces of media like they are down here on our tracks.
Perfect. All right. Sounds good. I'll let you keep going here.
All right, great. So we've done 2 levels of editing, right? The 0 level where we did nothing. The second level, where we animated and moved our webcam around and gave it a little bit more personality, let's go further. Let's edit our screen recording now. So there's lots of things you can do within Camtasia. There's so many tools. I'm going to show you a few of the more common ones that I use for a video like this, and know that you can use one of these tools, all of these tools, or anywhere in between. So we start by talking about, I think I start by talking about my favorite, we use your favorite web browser, TechSmith.com. First, in your favorite web browser, go to TechSmith.com. So I start talking about going to TechSmith.com in your favorite web browser, which means I think it would be helpful to show people TechSmith.com. So we're going to actually select the track that has the screen recording on it. And we are going to go to our animations tab. We're going to go to zoom and pan. And we're going to add an animation that shows it going to the upper left-hand corner to focus on TechSmith.com. Now, Camtasia by default adds an animation to everything on your timeline. I personally then click on the one on my webcam and hit delete because I like to stay on my screen. I like to make sure you're seeing my happy face, but I could always leave it off if I didn't want to. So that animation is something as simple as when the playhead hits it, browser, go to TechSmith.com. Maybe zoomed a little bit too fast so I can change that duration. So I was able to zoom in on the TechSmith.com. I could enhance this further by adding an arrow or a call out. In fact, let's do that, Ryan. Let's add my favorite annotation in the annotations toolbar. It's in the fourth tab across the top, and that is this one. In fact, I love it so much it's favorited, and that is a spotlight tool, where I'm going to drag it over the TechSmith.com web page or the web address. And then the reason I like it the most, Ryan, is it pops on the screen, right? It's something that's kind of fun to see, just kind of boop, pop on there. But I can do a few things to it. I can go over here to the properties panel and adjust its intensity to really let you know what I'm talking about. Maybe just really focus in on TechSmith.com. Not only can I do that, but I can also add a transition to it so it doesn't just pop on the screen. I could add something, elegant, like a fade. So now when it zooms in to that upper left-hand corner, I can fade to the focus of TechSmith.com. So let's see what that looks like. Web browser, go to TechSmith.com, and at the top of the page, locate the support menu. So then I'm probably going to fade it out quicker because I also need to do a pan. So go to TechSmith.com, and at the top of the page, locate the support menu. So I talked a little fast, so I'm going to move this spotlight over so that when it comes off, I start talking about the support menu. And as a matter of fact, when I click on it right here, not only is it obstructed by my face, it's too zoomed into the upper left-hand corner, and I can't see the entire menu, including the part that says webinar. So if we zoom out on our canvas here, you'll actually see that the only part of the video that you'll see if it's produced right now is the part that's lit up, because we zoomed all the way into that left-hand corner. So I need to see more of this side of the screen. So there's a couple ways we can do that. We can either go and zoom all the way back out, or we can do something called a pan. And a pan is done in the same place we did that zoom. We go back to the animations tool, and instead of zooming in, we're going to readjust the size. We'll select the recording, the screen recording. We'll adjust the size, and we'll scooch it over here just to the right so that we can see that on our screen. And once again, we're going to remove the animation from our webcam because I want to stay on the screen. So we've added a couple of animations, right? We've added a zoom in to the upper left-hand corner. We've added an annotation, my favorite one, a spotlight tool. And then as it fades out, we actually added a pan over to the right so that you can see the support menu. And then we click on webinars. Now there's a couple things we could do from this point as well. In fact, when I clicked webinars, I don't say anything for a second or two here. And I bet you that's because the page is loading. So let's see. And then choose the webinar tab. So I clicked on the webinar tab here. So at this point, the screen changes to the full screen of the webinar offering. So what I think I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to bring my playhead right to when I start talking again. And we're going to add a zoom out. So I could click on here and manually adjust all these corners up in the zoom and pan animation, but there's an easier way. As a matter of fact, I know they didn't, but I think the developers on our teams added this button for me specifically, and that is this button right here that says scale to fit. When I click this button, it automatically snaps it back to the exact scale that we started from, and it adds the animation on our track down here at the bottom. And once again, we're going to remove the one from the webcam. This is my personal preference. I just like to stay in that lower right-hand corner or wherever I happen to have put the webcam. And now when we play this back, let's play it back with all of our animations in place. First, in your favorite web browser, go to techsmith.com, and at the top of the page, locate the support menu, and then choose the webinar tab. Here you'll be brought to the TechSmith webinar and digital event schedule, which is going to show you all the upcoming webinars. All right, so there's more we could do here, Ryan. We could zoom in on all those feature sets. When we switch over to the previous recording webinar, we actually start talking about different offerings. So we could highlight those. We could drop, I think I talk about each individual one, right? And when you click on that, you can actually see the most recent webinars that we've done, including this one is the. So I say including this one. So let's get a little bit deeper into editing. At this point, I think it would be fun to add a annotation, except this time we're going to use not a basic arrow, which we have lots of in here. I'm actually going to add a call out arrow. And most people might not realize this, but do you see how it says style basic? There is a drop-down menu that has lots of other offerings inside of Camtasia. So you're not limited to what's here. So I'm going to actually click all and pick the style of arrow I want. I like this one right here. And I'm going to click and add that to my timeline, right to my canvas. I'm going to rotate it around so that it's pointing to this webinar, because this is the one I was talking about. Let's make it a little bit more exact. I'm going to double click on it and remove the text because I don't need it to say anything. And this blue is kind of jarring. So I'm going to go over to the properties panel and use my color picker tool. And I'm going to match it with the yellow that's already on the screen here by using the selection tool, the color picker, to match it in. So now when this arrow pops on the screen, we start talking about these webinars. Let's see how it looks. The most recent webinars that we've done, including this one, is the Make Videos Faster, our 10 tools for better screenshots, and easily editing audio, along with a whole series of easily editing audio. So we talk about make videos faster, our 10 tools for, and then I start talking about 10 tools, but the arrow's still pointing at my face. I need to point to Chandra's. So I can add an animation here. Let's click on a custom animation. We're just going to click and drag that onto the arrow itself. And just like before, all I need to do is double click on the end of that animation arrow and reposition this arrow so it's exactly where I want it. I use my arrow keys on my keyboard to make it a nice straight line. So that animates over to point at Chandra's face here. And let's play that back. This one is the Make Videos Faster, our 10 tools for better screenshots, and easily editing audio. And I said easily editing audio, so I'm going to add another animation. We'll click and drag the custom one down, double click on its head, move the arrow over, and there we have it. So we have an arrow that pops up on the screen and moves around as I'm talking about different things. But I don't like how it just disappears or pops on. So there's a couple things I could do here. I could either add any number of the transitions, just like we did before. We added the my favorite one here, the cascading squares. We could do a fade in, a fade out, or we could even do something even more bold, which is easy to do, which is a behavior. So behaviors are cool because behaviors are a combination of an animation and a transition all in one. Now, there really does work well with still images or still pieces of media like this arrow, but they're highly designed for using text. But I'm going to use it here for this arrow, and I'm going to grab this fly in behavior, and I'm going to click and drag it onto the arrow itself. So now when that plays in, it's going to fly onto the screen. It's going to drag over where I told it to one more time, and then it's going to fly out. So let's play that back for a second. This one is the Make Videos Faster, our 10 tools for better screenshots, and easily editing audio, along with a whole series of other ones as they load as the page goes further down. Back on that primary webinar page. So Ryan, we just added a ton of edits to this video. We definitely manipulated the screen recording by zooming in, adding a call out with a spotlight there that fades in and out. We then panned over. We then added a scale to fit so the full screen is visible. We didn't do any edits in here, but we certainly could. But then we drew attention here to different parts of the screen that I was referencing as I was talking. And then later on from our original edit, we pulled the webcam out and restrain. We've done a lot of edits to this video. Now, there's a lot more we could do, but we have to think about, once again, the goal of that video and how long we have to produce it and maybe who the audience is. So before we show how to get this video outside of Camtasia, I have one last poll question for you folks, and that is this. Of the three styles of the videos we just created, the original unedited, untouched one where the webcam has been edited and the screen recording was untouched, or one where we both edited the webcam and the screen recording both, which of these video styles would you personally share? Now, I'm not going to check on you or commit you to it, but it gives you an idea of what's possible depending on the goal of your video, how much time you have, your comfort level of editing, depending on how you're growing, or where it's going to go and the audience that's going to consume it. So let's give everybody a second here. Well, see, now people are answering super quick. I think maybe we gave some ideas today, which is awesome. That's my whole goal, is to make sure you know what's possible. And knowing that it's completely okay to choose any of these levels or anything in between them. Give everybody 5 more seconds. I have 171 of you that have answered. All right, let's share the results. So Ryan, 2% said they still would probably send out the original unedited version because that works for their goals and what they need to do. We have 10% or 18 people that said, yeah, the webcam was enough. I think that was pretty good. And then 152 people, or 88 people, 88% of the people that responded said, you know what, both of them. Let's go with both of them. Now, to be honest, I talked through that whole process and it's taken me 34 minutes to edit it. It wouldn't take this long if I wasn't showing you how to do it. So it's something that you gain skills on and gain speed, and you get to decide as the content creator how much editing that you want to do. But at this point, before we go and get this video outside of Camtasia, Ryan, let's go one more round. What kind of questions might have come in on what we've covered so far?
Sure. So there have been a few about audio. I know you've got audio on track 2 along with your webcam. I saw some questions about, let's say there's a cough or an or maybe they just want to remove a portion of audio. Can you talk about some of those options and workflows?
Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about that right now. So there's a lot of different ways to address that. The easiest way, and one thing to note, is I'm on screen the whole time. So if I make a cut or a obvious audio edit, you're going to see it on the screen. If it's a cut, it looks like a jump, right? You've seen a jump cut where the screen changes and you're like, wait, something just happened. If I remove an or an which I don't know if I'd said any, I might have. I've been known to do it. Or for me, forgive me, it's the mouth noises or today we're going to talk about, I know I did up breaths. In fact, let's find one regarding our products. Okay, right there, this noise, that big in breath, because I'm a big dude and I like to talk at a big volume. So the easiest way to remove small little errors like that right within Camtasia is actually to lean on this. This is the playhead, but it's also called the selection tool. And the selection tool, if we zoom in, gives you a lot of flexibility in what you're actually going to affect on the recording. If you click and drag either the green or red tabs to the left or to the right, you can make a selection right on your timeline. And a pro tip, if you hit play, Camtasia will only play back what's happening in that section. That's a big up breath. Holy cow, Ryan. Are you hearing that?
Yes.
That's a lot. All right. So how would I fix it? There's lots of ways. Let me show you the most visually pleasing way to do it. If you click on this track that has the recording, that has the audio on it, and in the properties panel, you choose the speaker icon, which is going to give you the audio controls. You'll notice that this green line shows up. So the green line is the overall audio level of the recording. I don't typically mess with the whole recording audio level. There's lots of other ways to do that. But if I wanted to get rid of that section, as long as I have the selection tool on the timeline, selecting that area, I can hover my mouse over that green line, click, and drag it down to 0. So now, let's double click that playhead. Now we have a section that has no audio. So let's see how that looks and sounds. various topics that you might be interested in regarding our products. If you signed up for a webinar and couldn't attend, it's not bad. I was pretty good. I was trying to be precise where it didn't sound like I was clipping a word or anything I said that way. If you do a lot of those kinds of ums and ahs silencing, which you can do by doing this manual process, we also have another tool, Audiate, if you're interested. We definitely did some webinars on that where it helps to automatically find those, but it is a separate product from Camtasia. If you do enough of these silences and it sounds too silent, right? Like we've made it, not only if we silence it, there's no like room noise or anything like that. You can do something pretty simple, and that is to insert some additional audio. Inside of Camtasia, inside the library, you do have royalty-free music tracks. You can add music to fill those gaps and use the audio effect called emphasize audio to make sure that you're talking over music and it sounds good, and you can still produce that video out and hide all those little silenced sections. Now that's getting really deep, and you certainly can do it. And if we've got time at the end, I can show it specifically. But that's my long answer to how would I get rid of ums and ahs and my up breaths and stuff like that. Where else are we at, Ryan?
Oh, lots of questions.
Right.
How about again on audio? We'll stick with audio here. Is there a way to slow down that audio playback to making your edits? I'm assuming it's during the editing process, but
slow down the so you can use clip speed to slow down your audio. Once again, clip speed will slightly distort the sound that it's affecting, so you might slow down a little bit like that. Also, in this particular video, if I'm on the screen, it's going to be noticeable, but you can adjust your audio by dragging or speed by clicking and dragging clip speed to an audio track and making adjustments in that same effects drawer here. The audio clip speed will show up down here, and you can click and drag and move it around as well.
Yep. And Lori did verify that she was asking about during editing. And I think for me, one of the things is, I think you showed this, is zooming in on the timeline is kind of stretching out the audio waveform. And there's another, and I think you also showed this too, making a selection. If you're not sure of what exactly it is, if you make that selection and use like your space bar or the play bar, it will only play that section.
Be brought to the, that is
adjust it.
Absolutely. We've done this for years. We do this. Ryan and I are part of the team that makes our tutorials. We do this kind of precise edits all the time to our audio. Absolutely.
But yeah, it doesn't look, there's not the capability of saying play this at half the speed during editing. But I know overall, that question has come in before though.
Nope. I get it. Absolutely.
All right. While we're on the timeline down there, somebody had asked, is it possible to rename tracks? So like right now you've got track 1, track 2, track 3. Would you show that real quickly?
Yeah. So they come in labeled as the piece of media, but yeah, you can simply right click on the track name. Like this says track 1. I can choose rename track. So in this case, I might name it screen. And on this one, I might rename it to camera, so that I always have those available to me. I do the same thing with music or voiceover or captions, all those kinds of things I rename on a regular basis. So, hey, Ryan, we're getting short on time. I want to show how to get the video outside of Camtasia, and then we'll loop back around to more questions if we can.
Perfect. All right. Sounds good.
Great. So if this video is done, and for our purposes, we're going to call it done. The easiest way to export, produce, share this video outside of Camtasia is to go into the upper right-hand corner and choose the export button, which gives you several options. You have local file, which is at the top. This is what's going to allow you to share this or save this MP4 locally, hard drive, desktop, wherever you happen to want it. We've got several different options for cloud sharing, screencast.com, Nomia. We have our Panopto output if you have Panopto within your organization, Vimeo, YouTube, Google Drive. To be honest, 9 times out of 10, I save it as a local file, and I make sure that I save it out as an MP4 so that I have control. If I save the MP4 to my desktop or wherever I want it, I can upload it to multiple services later on or wherever I want to have it. So I hit next. It takes the name from whatever you named your project. So if you want to change it to something else, you can do that here. You can choose the folder as to where it's going to be saved. In my case, I'm just going to save it to our desktop. And then you have various different options here. It'll organize it into its own folder. It'll show your production results, or it'll play it right after production. I'm going to turn play off after production off. And then when you hit finish, it's going to start to render that video. Now, this is a question we get asked a lot. How long does this take? Well, it depends. It depends on the type of computer you have, how powerful it is, how long the video is, how involved it is. I've got a pretty powerful computer, and this was a pretty short video. I think it was like 1:10 long. We didn't add a lot of extra features to it. We didn't add a lot of other video or music. So it's going to render out pretty quickly. And when it's done, I'll open up my desktop here because it's almost done here. I created this find our webinars folder, and in a second, that MP4 is going to populate. Refresh it. There it is. And if I play that back, hi, everybody. This is Jason with TechSmith. I'd like to show you where you can find our webinar offerings right on TechSmith.com. First, in your favorite web browser, go to TechSmith.com, and at the top of the page, locate the support menu, and then choose the webinar tab. Okay, so we won't watch the whole video because you guys just watch me make it. So that is the easiest, most direct way of exporting a video outside of Camtasia. Of course, you can use any number of those cloud sharing destinations as well. Best practice for me, like I said, saving it as an MP4 and then sharing it out to wherever I would like later on.
Hey, Jason, so you just exported it as an MP4. Let's say you found you made a couple mistakes. Can you come in and make those changes and then re-export it again? Or
yeah, actually, no, that's a good question. So let's go back to where I saved this to my desktop. So there's two things here. There is the Find Our Webinars MP4 that we just made. This is a baked, finished video. I can bring this video back into Camtasia, but all the arrows and zooms and everything that we made are always going to be there. I can't do anything about those. But remember at the beginning when we saved our project and we clicked Save as a standalone folder? That's the folder. And inside there is the project and the original recording. So I could come back in at any time and open up that TechSmith project file. It'll bring me right back here to the last save state of the project. And I could say, well, maybe I didn't want that yellow. I don't know why I picked yellow. It blends in too much. Maybe I actually wanted to make it a different color. Maybe I wanted Camtasia's orange color. And I could manipulate it so it changes to the orange color all the way throughout. Or maybe I wanted to go from orange to green to, I don't know, white. So now we've got a change to the video different from the one I rendered. So I can make whatever changes I want and then share it out as its own MP4 right away. So I'm starting from a recipe that I created here, but I can always finish the video however I want based on the changes that I made.
Great. In that video that you exported, that MP4, is that possible to then manually upload that to YouTube or into Dropbox or wherever? I mean, are there any changes that you would make to it before sending it to YouTube?
No, actually, it's ready to go. It is a baked, ready to go MP4. I mean, YouTube will ask for other things, right? Like a title and a description and a thumbnail, or it can automatically generate a thumbnail. All those things can be done after the fact. But the actual video, that MP4 that we saved here to our desktop in that Find Our Webinars folder, that one's ready to go. I could put that up on YouTube right now and it'd be just fine. Or Vimeo, or, you know, put it in my LMS or share it on my network drive. It's ready to go.
Awesome. A real quick question from the media library. Can you show how, let's say they wanted to import other pieces of media. Can you show the types, the file types that they could import?
Yeah. Yep. So if you click plus here and click import media, you're going to get a dialog that's asking where on your computer you want it. If you click this little, well, it's going to be hard because of my monitor. So let's move this over. If I use this drop down menu here and hover over it, it's going to show you all the media types TechSmith Camtasia supports. The TREC, which are the TechSmith recording files, all various video formats like MP4s, MOVs, WMVs, bitmaps, animated GIFs, PDFs. We support PowerPoint decks, so you can bring in PowerPoint slides and they show up as individual pieces of media, all kinds of images, audio files. You'll be hard pressed to find ones in the modern world that we don't support for this sort of purpose. But yep, it shows them right here, and those should be exposed when you go to import that media as options as well.
Excellent. So I think I've got a couple more I want to ask you. I don't know if we
right.
have time to do both of them, but we'll start
Let's
with.
do them. Let's do them.
Can you, Amy asks, can you highlight your cursor as you're showing the audience what you're doing in the video? Like doing putting a circle or something around your cursor that follows it around.
Yeah. So you can do a lot of things. One of the things that happens when Camtasia records your screen is it records this, not this, this is my mouse, the mouse in the actual recording. And you can manipulate parts of it over here. Like you could raise its scale up so that it's nice and big. You can change its opacity if you want. But you can lean on cursor effects, which are over here on the left, everything from smoothing out the actions. For someone like me, that's really helpful because I tend to move it around quite a bit, to highlighting it, to spotlighting it. So if we drag the highlight down here onto the effect, I can change its size, and it can drag around based on how opaque it is. Let's make it not super blocking there. So now when the video is playing back, you can follow the mouse around with that highlighting. Yep, there it is. So, yep, you certainly can do that.
Perfect.
I don't use it that often, so I'm going to toggle it off, but you can do that. Absolutely.
All right. Sounds good. And I also want to mention here, I mean, Jason is obviously we're going into more than just a getting started session, showing a lot of different tips, but that's one of the benefits of why we send you the recording is so that you can go back and review this. Because a lot of times if you see it a second time or even a third time and hear it, it's going to stick. So hopefully you don't feel frustrated like, oh, I'm not getting all of this. You're going to get that recording. You're going to be able to go back and see this again. So hopefully Jason's showing a lot of great stuff here that will help you with your video creation.
Sure.
All right. You want one more?
One more.
All right. This has to do with animations.
Okay.
And it has to do with adding visual effects. So maybe you can show where in an animation, if you wanted to add a visual effect to it and then maybe change the effect later, maybe just kind of walk through the animations one more time and kind of show that process with some visual animations to it.
So let's
if
pick,
that helps.
Let's see if we can figure this out. So I added a call out here. That's arrow call out. Let's zoom in on that on the timeline. And I added an animation. And in this case, it's starting out orange and it's changing to this green color, Camtasia green. I think the question is, if I want to make changes, as long as the change that you make is showing up after the animation is completed, and this animation is movable, you can change its duration if you want it to be longer, shorter, as long as it's after this. So like, let's say, for example, I wanted it to not only move, but I wanted it to spin around one time. I have no idea why I'd want to do that. But as long as it happens after the animation arrow, the animation duration will show it happening while the animation is on your screen. We have an entire set of videos on our tutorial page around animations. So if there's deeper questions, I would definitely start with that. Or, when you fill out the survey at the end, if you leave your contact information, we might be able to reach out as far as further questions around animations.
Yep. Good point. And do have all those tutorials. Those will come in the email as well. Some links to some additional resources that you can check out.
Absolutely.